The old Burns family mausoleum, close to the site of Nettlehurst House. The house was built in the 1870s by William Burns, who was a toy manufacturer. The house was then purchased by the Kerr family, who installed electricity. And due to a problem with that electricity network, the house was burnt down in 1932. It's remembered as being seen by a Sunday school outing who had returned to Gifford Station below the house and saw the house in flames. Hugh Brown and his wife Margaret Caldwell lived at the old Broadston House. This had once been a castle, which was finally demolished in 1857 and had been the homes of the Montgomerys. It's very important in the history of Ulster. Many of the tenants from here went across to Ulster. It was called the Protestant Plantations. This tiny mausoleum of 1594 lies on the grounds of St Brendan's Kirk in Kilbirnie. It contains the effigies and the bodies of Thomas Craufurd and his wife Janet Kerr of nearby Caresland Castle. He was called Jordanhill because he was given the lands of Jordanhill for his part in taking the castle of Dumbarton from the troops of Mary Queen of Scots. In a church at the site of St Brendan's since at least the 6th century. The Cunninghams of Glengarnock built an aisle there in 1597, where some of them are buried in a crypt. In 1642, the Crawfords of Kilbirnie Place also built an aisle and a crypt. The Kerr family were businessmen rather than aristocrats. They were involved in the thread mills, some of the earliest businesses in Ayrshire. They built country houses at Moor Park and at Redhew, and a number of the family are buried in these impressive memorials in the extension to St Brendan's Kirk graveyard. Knoxes ran their business from the 18th through to the 20th century. The remains of their first mill can be seen in the woods behind Moor Park House. The Giffen Isle, close to the ruins of St Edmund's Kirk and Beath, was the burial place of members of the Montgomery family. Giffen Castle, which collapsed in 1838, had been given to the Eglinton family and later passed on to the Montgomerys. Originally, it was given upon the marriage of one of the Eglintons to Egidia, the daughter of King Robert II. Earlier members of the Montgomery family, the Earls of Eglinton, were buried within a crypt present in the grounds of Kilwinning Abbey. Later members were buried in the public cemetery, where a crypt area fenced off can still be seen. The Skelmery in Largs, built in 1636, was attached once to the old parish church, was demolished in 1802 when a new church was built. It contains the bodies of Margaret Douglas and her husband, Sir Robert Montgomery of Skelmery. Sir Hugh Montgomery of Eaglesham is also said to be buried here. He was the hero of the Battle of Otterburn and in many ways the founder of the fortunes of the Montgomerys in Scotland. The magnificence of the monuments is said to reflect the guilt of Sir Robert for his many crimes. After the new church was built in Beath, the old church was eventually converted to form a mausoleum, mainly for the families of the Cochrans, the Patricks, and the Cochrane Patricks of Hessel Head. There are 7 gravestones within the mausoleum, all with their inscriptions. The beautifully carved marble memorial to the Spears family now lies at the back of St Innes Church in Beath. Originally it was contained within Spears School. The school had been opened in 1888 but was closed in 1972. But Spear of Marshland and Cuff married Margaret Gibson. She outlived her husband and all of her 8 children and died in 1870. The last of her sons to die, John, who passed away in 1858, had the school named after himself. The rather quaint little Brisbane Isle, or Brisbane Mausoleum, lies in the grounds of the old church at Largs, close to the Skelmley Isle. It was built in 1634 for the shores of Kelso Land, which was later renamed Brisbane. Amongst the memorials on the small isle is that of Major General Sir Thomas Brisbane, who was Governor of New South Wales and also a noted astronomer. The West Kilbride Cemetery contains a prominent memorial to Professor Robert Simson. He was Professor of Mathematics at Glasgow University at the age of 23. He was one of 17 brothers. He never married, and when he died, there were a large number of donations, including the Earl of Eglinton, to his memorial. Lying below Clough Hill, not far from Beith, are the Druids' graves. This is a Neolithic chambered tomb. The individual kists where the bodies were laid were covered with a big mound of stones. This was fairly well preserved until the 19th century, when sadly a road was being built nearby and the road builders took many of the stones away. Fortunately, the landowner arrived on the scene and stopped them before it was totally destroyed. The people who were buried here were almost certainly close related, so the site qualifies as a family mausoleum.